Hello and welcome to Wellness with Dipal. I am your host, Dipal Shah, and today we are talking to Dr. Alison J Kay. And we're going to be talking to her about vibrational upgrade, how you can get your vibrational upgrade. And it's really interesting because she talks about a conspiracy for your bliss, not your difficulty. So we're going to talk to her in just a moment, and I'm just trying to get some things linked here so that if you are joining us live, I want to welcome you and stay tuned for just a moment. Hello and welcome back. Hello, Dr. Allison. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Wonderful. It is so great to have you here. And I want to introduce you because I feel like you inspire me as I was reading your bio and just going through what you do and what you offer to the world. So, Dr. Allison, she is an award winning #1 international best selling author and founder of Vibrational UPgrade System. She is an experienced subtle energies practitioner and natural healer with a holistic approach towards helping others thrive in mind, body, and spirit. And I love that. I resonate with that. I do that myself, so I completely resonate with it. Dr. Allison's mission is to support the next higher evolution of the collective and create change for the health of this planet and those who are ready to unleash every part of the magic within them. So, welcome again.
Thank you. I'm
Yeah,
excited.
I am too. So, we're talking about vibrational upgrade, a conspiracy for your bliss, not your difficulty. A lot of times we do think that that vibrational upgrade is can create difficulties, and so we're going to get into some of these questions that I can't wait to ask you, and I'm sure our viewers are really excited to talk about. But how did you come to where you are today, Dr. Allison? Because I know for me, I was in the pharmaceutical industry, so I was in the corporate world, and this, the spiritual journey and awakening and energy healing just kind of came very naturally, but it was work.
Mm. Yeah, I hear you. I actually have a vibrational upgrade practitioner, born and raised in India, and then transplanted to American citizen now, who's a pharmaceutical pharmacist in training in background, and became an energy medicine practitioner with my system of vibrational upgrade. I've always been this way, and it's just been a matter, frankly, of allowing myself to follow my guidance and discover new things. And an example more concretely of that is walking around in the woods with my brother, my older brother, growing up, and just feeling connected to everything. And then as a teen, writing in a journal. Nobody suggested it. I just naturally chose to start writing in a journal. And it wasn't diary writing. Right from the start, it was like this allowing of a voice, another voice to come in. So I was connecting with my guidance even as a teen. And so I always had this sense of connecting into something bigger than me, and there being a guiding force from the invisible or the metaphysical, beyond the physical. And I entered college as a person majoring in psychology. And after the third semester, found that it just wasn't answering the question, how do we become the happiest, most thriving versions of ourselves? So I changed majors and I started to study what advertising does to our perspective. I remember being horrified. I had an Indian professor at the time teaching us about like the targeting of ads for housewives when they're housewives at that time, dish soap, and soap operas were the time that they would assume that there were housewives watching, and that whole targeting. And it blew my mind wide open. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So you're then therefore creating these constructs that you give us to live by. And I was 19. So
Wow.
yeah, so I ended up with an English lit major after studying, then moving into a political major. It was called social thought and political economy. So I ended up ultimately studying English literature. So I was studying society, psychology, and in the nuances of what we do when those two intermingle as we go out into society, from an art form in English lit. And so I moved over to San Francisco from the East Coast, and was waiting to go for my master's, and entered a political career. Synchronistically, it dropped in my lap. And so 2 years in, I was 1 year, and right away from the start, frankly, I was having massive success. I had hit my stride immediately because it was an organization formed to help get people elected to both the state and federal level, not only who were going to say yes to vote on environmentally conserving legislation, but we're going to write the legislation, write the policies. So I loved what I was doing because I wanted the protection of the earth. And this is in the early 90s. So within a year into that, as I'm hitting more and more success, and they're putting me in more and more intense campaigns, so I was having more stress. I was walking through a bookstore in San Francisco, and a book about meditation flew off the shelf, literally dropping. It didn't fly. I didn't watch it fly, but it dropped in front of my feet, and I couldn't watch.
Right.
I learned to meditate. And at that time too, I had also been going to the San Francisco Chinatown, which I think is better than the New York or the Boston one. I think it's the best one in the country. And I was reading the I Ching, age 19. So I was allowing this opening to what I then learned. If I fast forward, I won't. So hold on a second. So great success. Got a woman elected, first Latina woman elected to the California State Assembly. She saved the last bit of green space in LA Basin. So I then traveled overseas after that election season, backpacking and playing. And it wasn't my first time overseas. I was an exchange student in high school in Venezuela. So I had this sense of travel and adventure in abundance, and woohoo! So I came back to the States after backpacking overseas for like 6 months, got my master's in public administration and public policy to help protect the environment. So the focus was environmental policy. I got out, and as I was graduating, I picked up my first energy medicine modality. But I had also been teaching by this point meditation to adults at a local community center. And when I got done and I was job hunting, I was, asking the question, where do we affect more change, from within the system or outside of it? So I was looking at jobs both in local and federal EPAs, as well as nonprofits and NGOs. And you know that feeling when like doors just aren't opening, and like, yeah. So I read it for what it was, and I sat back and asked my guidance, like, what's going on here? What are you trying to tell me? And what I got was, if you want to, the fossil fuel industry is too embedded still within the marketplace. So now we're in the mid to late 90s. And so if you want to affect change, do it one consciousness at a time. So what I chose to do instead, and ironically, I found out later, that was when Al Gore stepped out of politics and created the movie that won him a Nobel Peace Prize, An Inconvenient Truth, and traveled around the world with that about protecting the environment and global warming. And this is now in the late 90s. So I relied on my bachelor's in English lit, went in the classroom and taught, and then on the side began running energy medicine and holistic health and wellness sessions because I was getting trained in herbalism, Native American at that point. So after 2.5 years of that, I was not digging the sense of being in a cage. Like, is this what you expect of me for the next 3 decades of my life? And for a master's level educated person, what I was making, all I wanted was basic housing, basic car, but organic produce, which was still expensive at that time, and a massage a week, which I consider like preventative health 201 at least.
Oh yeah.
And it wasn't, yeah. And it wasn't happening with grace and ease and joy. And there was also,
when you just know that it's time for a shift.
Yeah, but I was only 2.5 years into the career,
Wow.
And on the side, I was teaching Qigong to middle school boys labeled with a male colleague of mine. I was teaching meditation and Qigong to ADD and ADHD labeled boys in the school system. Yeah. And I was running energy medicine sessions on the side. So around the same time, I had that realization I just talked about feeling in a cage and that it wasn't okay, because I knew a sense of adventure. I knew abundance was inherent to our birthright, and it wasn't okay. I also was having this session with this client. It was like a third or fourth in a series of 10. My hands are over her womb area, and she was getting great results. Both of us were really excited. And I looked up and I asked, like, okay, so how can I get even more robust results for my clients?
Right.
So in a month, a synchronicity comes in through a colleague of mine, tells me about the international school system. I do what I have to do. I go to get interviewed in another location in the States with the international school heads coming in from all over the world, candidates coming in from all over the world to a hotel, going into different hotel rooms, many throughout the day, ended up with many job offers around the world and chose Asia because I understood that that was the seat of where energy not only is understood, but
Yep.
that ancient wisdom is still operating within the way they organize their society, in the way they do their politics, and the way humans interact, in the psychology of each individual.
Yes.
So I went over there as a department chair and an administrator, and at the same time was running energy medicine and holistic health and wellness sessions alongside my teaching administration career to expats and local Chinese. And so then I came back in 2010 after a decade of that and exploring. I can go into all the exploration I did about consciousness and meditation in the way energy runs through the body. I became a yoga teacher. I became a Qigong teacher, did
Yeah.
a lot of interaction with Buddhist monks. I had a daily, not a daily, I usually went to the gym after work, but on the weekends I could run behind this really cool monastery that had beautiful paths. And I would
Mm.
end up interacting with monks. And then I would travel on the Chinese New Year breaks to Buddhist monasteries. I mean, I would go to Thailand and I'd get Thai massages and I'd dance at night and eat the
That
great Thai
sounds
food.
amazing.
But I'd also go to Buddhist monasteries. Yeah. So I came back, dropped the classroom teaching, and have taken this full time.
Oh,
That's it.
sounds like Eat, Pray, Love.
Oh my God, I'm so grateful you said that because I felt like it's so funny because I was doing that very Aboriginal on Bali healer she went to, I had gone to because she
No
does the same
way.
treatment of the chopped up garlic on the legs before she ever did.
That is so awesome. Oh, I would love. I am so wanting to go to Bali, do the whole eat, pray, love thing. Oh my gosh, I just loved that movie. I'm like, I don't know why I didn't watch it earlier. I literally watched it just a couple of months ago, and I so resonated with it. Oh, it's just a wonderful movie. If you guys have not seen it out there, be sure to watch that movie. It really does change your perspective of life in general, you know? And so here's my question.
I
How
lived that. I lived that life before she ever did and before it ever became popular. I have a
that's,
nickname of a maverick or a pioneer. So I
that's
have to say that.
awesome. That's awesome. So when you probably saw that movie, you're like, that was me. That was me.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So here's my question then. You know, you developed a energy medicine technique, I guess. It's called vibrational upgrade. Now, how do you help someone with their own spiritual awakening?
So vibrational upgrade system at this point, I had picked up 5 different energy medicine modalities along the way and learned a lot. Like I would go every Sunday to get a Tui Na, traditional Chinese massage, and reflexology. And I'd sit there in the chair having my feet worked on with a chart about the body in Chinese and where the different energy flows go from the foot up throughout the body, for example. And I'd ask questions. And I did the same thing whenever I would go to I get a Thai massage in Thailand, for example, because I did go to Bali, but I would usually go back to Thailand during my Chinese New Year breaks because it's so easy to travel in and relaxing. And so my yoga teacher and meditation teacher background is one half of it. It's not
Mhm.
just energy medicine because I'm a personal trainer. I also have specialty certification as a part of that in behavioral change. And you have the background in psych. I ended up teaching AP psych in the classroom later on. Um, so I have an understanding of what it really takes for change.
Right,
Like I don't do energy medicine and I don't teach my practitioners to do it just so that somebody can walk away from a session feeling lighter.
right.
It's how to connect in with it's understanding the whole science behind subtle energy and how it flows in our body and why it doesn't flow,
Mhm.
how that affects our health, our mind, and our creation of our lives. So I bring in the whole other half. I use the energy medicine to clear unconscious and subconscious blockages that correspond with specific chakras throughout the body. So chakra is a wheel in Sanskrit to English. It means to spin. It's meant to spin. Vital life force energy, or chi as in qigong or tai chi, or prana as we call it in yoga. It's to circulate throughout the entire body. A chakra is an intersection of the mind, the body, and the spirit. So I'm able to affect all levels of a human system by working through the chakra column. So we're not talking about a 5-minute YouTube video where we listen to singing bowls or crystal bowls to balance the fifth chakra. We're talking about every chakra has a right to it, and it covers a domain of life. And so by working in this systematic way, working with this really finely honed intuition that earned me the nickname Hawkeyes, I can see where someone's block is. Yeah. Like right when they first get to me, their major block. And so in Sanskrit, there's this idea of samskaras, which is like each of us has like 2-ish core patterns as a soul we've incarnated into a body to move beyond.
Yep.
So yeah, I love all your yupping.
I love it. I understand it completely.
But when somebody, but what I see where energy medicine falls short, and I don't ever, part of the training for my vibrational upgrade practitioners is to not say energy work, because the second part of my mission, the first part of my mission, I came back and from the East, and I was like, man, if people in the West only understood the science behind subtle energy and the value of working with our consciousness, there'd be so much less suffering.
Oh, I agree. I agree. So much less suffering, pain, disease, all of that, all of that. And so here's the thing, for listeners who have maybe heard about the chakras before, what is it that you find important to say to folks who have seen this buzzword out in social media?
Right. I love that you asked that. Let me just finish up the other half of the energy medicine is the work from my whole other part of me, which is my meditation and yoga teacher background. I took yoga my first semester in college as an elective. And so the meditation aspect, like I worked with the Dalai Lama's texts. He used to have every other year summits with Western scientists, psychologists, neuroscientists. And did you ever see the Time cover of the monk with electrodes on his head?
I did.
That came out of those meetings the Dalai Lama had with the Westerners every other year. And so they wrote reports, and I used those reports and created before I went into teaching AP Psych, I created global psychology that the students could take at the international school for an elective. And it was half the college 101 intro to psychology in the West, and the other half was his texts that came out of these summits. And so the measuring of the subtle energy and the shifts in consciousness came out of those summits. So I say that because I have an understanding of the impact of meditating and the actual neurological functions of shifting one's consciousness. And so to have a new behavior result from energy medicine, we need follow-up to help a person. So if 85% of our consciousness isn't the thoughts we hear, but it's the buried consciousness, what I call the back of the house consciousness, the sub and un, then freeing that up to be more conscious when we make choices, so we see new choices and other choices, and then also have more desire consciously to make different choices, then 85% of our lives won't be lived in robotic form. I have found in working with thousands of people at this point that it's more like 95% of a day. What falls off of our peripheral, what we don't see as possible, what we don't ever notice, is because of all that blocked up consciousness. So I come at it from a perspective instead about it. I don't call myself a healer. It's more about learning how to live in the possibilities that are becoming available from 2012 to 2032 as we go through our greatest evolutionary leap. So Vibrational Upgrade System is both working with applied mindfulness to show people how to work with the freed up consciousness so they can make new choices, carve out new neurological pathways, and ultimately have new behaviors for permanent behavioral change. So
that's wonderful. That is wonderful. And you offer that, is that correct?
Yes.
Is it a course?
Yeah, I train. Yeah, it's fun. The training of the practitioners, I take them on retreat in and we go to sacred sites over in the UK. And as you increase in your level, we go to stone circles and learn how to work with some other stuff on behalf of the earth and the collective. So we start out learning, they start out learning the flow of energy within themselves, working on themselves, and then about others, and then how to work with the applied mindfulness aspect with others. And then we take it out to the earth, into the collective at more advanced levels. So you asked me, and I just wrote about that in my most recent book. It's my 4th book, The Dragon Master Creatrix. But you asked me
about the chakras.
This 2nd book. Yeah. Vibrational Upgrade, A Conspiracy for Your Bliss. And my publisher had me put in that subtitle, Easing Humanity's Evolutionary Transition, because it's, if you go to Amazon, all 4 of my books, and the last 3 of the 4 are international #1 bestsellers, use my J middle initial, because there's another Alison Kay there. And she writes about something different. So, so in that book, I used A Conspiracy for Your Bliss, because when you asked just now about the chakras, and I love how you say chakra.
Chakras?
I love how you say it. And I love the question you asked, because it's a buzzword, totally. And
it is. It definitely is.
I've been spending the last couple of years finding myself needing to say what I already said about, like, when you go on YouTube and you're listening to Chris, the sound healing for a chakra, you're not necessarily healing or balancing the chakra. There's so much more in the way that we can release our potential is by working with the back of the house consciousness that's buried, that's blocked. And it could be from imprints from our parents. It could be imprints from our lineage that we carry in the DNA. It could be karma from past lives, because it gets saved in the cellular matrix, I have come to understand. And then when we reincarnate, it starts to proliferate throughout our DNA as we become a new embryo, fetus, etc. So then I can get to in the chakra, if we're dealing with the mind, body, and spirit all together. We can also look at past contracts and other lifetimes. Like if you were a monk or in a religious order, or here's an example from a client. She was a baroness and she owned a great big property in northwestern France, and had some disaster come in, a natural disaster, and wasn't able to provide for all her people. That she was like a serfdom. All the people out there working on her land and earning money. And so she carried this like huge responsibility for others, and was and felt very burdened on her shoulders, and was afraid to make a certain amount of money, or had hesitancy around having a certain amount of money. And money was always a huge, heavy responsibility for her. There wasn't a lot of I'm free and loose and I can have fun with my money. It's a very important thing, as many people do with money. So the chakra allows me and us to access, when you know the right way to work with it, all of the different causes that would cause a block. But depending on the topic or the area of life, each chakra has a right to it. So the sacral chakra is the right to feel the way you feel. So let's say you're brought up in a culture that teaches you the intellect is the most important, and that's how you prove your success, and it's measurable with your external worth of your house, your car. So all of that comes from the intellect, and it's not a culture that values the intuition or the wisdom, the feminine wisdom that comes in through feelings. I don't mean over emotionality. I don't mean reactivity. I mean the genuine interior GPS that our feelings are, particularly when you work with the goddess traditions. So if we are taught in a culture that it is all about productivity, and it is all about proving your worth via that productivity, and that your success is measured via that productivity from an external source, well, everything is directed towards the external, and the valuing then is the external. So then we'll be taught to also power through those feelings, ignore those feelings, be reliant more on the rational, and dismiss or devalue the feelings. So that would cause the sacral chakra to not have as much vital life force energy running through it, because it's unconscious blocks that relate to that chakra's topic that make maybe the hips be tighter chronically, or maybe may the reproductive system have issues. Because if it's not the chakra is not turning the vital life force energy. It's affecting that body area. It's affecting that mental area, and it's affecting that spiritual area. So if a woman or a man gets sexually violated, the sacral area is also an area physically that takes a lot of it. But not all of it. So by working with through the chakra column, we're able to dissect in a way, in the most reliable way. Like, I know there's other stuff out there, and I'm sure you've heard it, and many of the listeners have those, that interpretation of, well, if your feet are hurting, or you're having pain in the knees, that means you're hesitant about moving forward.
Right.
Okay. I find that way oversimplified. I was working with that in the early in the 90s, and it's not reliable. Even the point that the left side of the body is about receiving and the right side of the body is about giving, that's not even as reliable as the chakra column. Knowing it and understanding it, it helps you help a person. And I'm not saying you have to know about the chakra system. You could just as in air quotes, flow light or energy into a person,
Right.
and gradually over time, because it has a divine intelligence of its own, the light, and it rises up in a way or activates the higher self. Over a lot of sessions, a person will lighten. What I like to do instead, remember my request and what made me move to Asia was, how can I get more robust results for my clients?
Right.
Is bringing in an aspect of what I get intuitively with a client where there might be a blockage. I'm not going to go directly into the core issue right away. I'll hold it until they're ready to hear it and they've
Right.
had enough clearing and enough release. And then I teach and train my vibrational upgrade practitioners. Is usually a sign that the client will come walking into the next session or remotely reporting at the beginning of a session, that you use as an understanding that now that consciousness has come out of the buried state, and now you can do more of the applied mindfulness directing. So it speeds up the decades spent in meditation. Like, I'm seeing my clients get results in like 2 years that it took me 5.
Right.
By coupling the two, yeah, the chakra column is the way to go, because it's not about. Let me go further. Can I go further? Do you have another question?
No, you could go a little further.
Okay, so I know you had really great questions, and I'm excited to hear them. The bottom line is that it's not just about healing. It's not just even about like uncovering the buried consciousness to have it more at your disposal so you can make new choices and have different behaviors and a different life. It's also about reaching your greatest potential. So in the tradition, I'm so excited. In the
I know,
traditional,
I can see how passionate you are, so I love it.
I was just looking at your face and realizing you were reflecting that back to me, and I heard my tone. I do. I love what I do. And this is the part that I love the most, because as we are going through humanity's greatest evolutionary leap from 2012 to 2032, there's so much new. That's why we're seeing so much chaos, because the old is crumbling, but the new hasn't physicalized totally yet. So we don't have the new system in place. But as we watch more people get into meditation and more people go to yoga studios and more people ask about and know about the chakras, that's our spiritual awakening from 2012 to 2032. And we're going to be building a very, very different world. That's much more heart-centered, much more aligned, much less about dominance, abuse of power, out of mistruths. That's why so much is coming to the surface over the last bunch of years, because we all and the earth have been going through a massive cleansing.
Yep, I agree.
Uh-huh.
I
Yep.
agree. I think it's wonderful. Everything that you've shared with us, I think it's going to provide so many people some more clarity as to a
Excellent.
lot of aspects of up leveling our vibration in so many different ways, and especially with what you offer. Can you tell us, where can people reach you? I have put it in the comments. However, I want to just go ahead and reiterate. If somebody wanted to reach you, where would that be?
Well, I mean, if you want to reach me as directly as you possibly can, you can get to my VA at support@AlisonJK.com or support@Vibrational Upgrade. That's the email. I have a free Facebook group called Vibrational Upgrade. And then you can go to my website, vibrationalupgrade.com, or use my name, AlisonJK.com, and you can see how to work with me. It's very clear. There's a tab that says work with me.
Perfect. Perfect.
There's this
Beautiful.
there's this whole potential, though, of what we call the field of the Tao. That's the unlimited possibilities. And this is a conspiracy for your bliss. I want to bring it in because I sense how triggered and charged you were, not in a bad way. A conspiracy for your bliss? I mean,
Right, exactly. I'm like, conspiracy? What kind of word?
I love how you introed it because you said it's not about a conspiracy for struggling.
Exactly.
Yeah. So
I had to shift my mindset. You know what I mean?
I
Because
totally know what you
certain
mean.
words we hear, and then we're like, wait a second, let's shift that. So the
If
mind
you
has
go
to do a little work.
If you go to my website, it says I'm meant to disrupt those patterns, and
And I
that's what
love that. I love
yeah,
that.
I love the description you gave of what happened because that's exactly what I do, and I know what I'm doing,
Yeah,
so that I can get in with something new, right?
exactly. Then
Yeah.
people will listen.
So there's this field called the Tao, T-A-O. It comes from traditional Chinese
Uh-huh.
medicine. I understand it from working with Qigong and being a Qigong teacher. And I'm looking out at trees while I'm turning my head. We are so the Tao exists everywhere. It's all throughout us. It's that prana that runs through us, or the Qi or life force, but it's in every rock and every tree. And in the whole vibrational backdrop we're living in now. And so in 2012 to 2032, there's all these new possibilities coming online. And so what I love to do is open up people to be able to access that. So I'm living on the cutting edge of bringing in the new paradigm of what else is possible. And I've done this my whole life. So, but it's really charged now from 2012 to 2032. So when our chakras are totally open, when they're spinning the vital life force energy in the front and in the back, then they have a vortex. That's why you see some chakra images of the lotus petals.
Mm-hmm.
These petals are meant to be emanating out chi. And when both the front and the back are, and all the chakras are, then you have a really robust field that then is able to sing out to the unlimited field of possibilities of the Tao around us and bring in manifesting easier that's of a higher vibrational nature.
Awesome. Is all this stuff in your book?
So a conspiracy, vibrational upgrade, a conspiracy for your bliss. My second book. This one, yeah, it doesn't go into the field as much, but it does go into the third chakra. Why I say that it's a conspiracy for your bliss. In my third book, which I'm not going to hold up because I don't want to step away from the camera, Reasonable Dragons. It's also on Audible. It's my only book on Audible. That goes into the beginning of the bridge into the field. It's a very concise book. It seems to be people's favorite, Reasonable Dragons. My most recent book does go into more thoroughly what I just described. And it's fun because it's it's based on what really happened, but it's written from the perspective of a student going on these international retreats, getting trained to become a vibrational upgrade practitioner. So the first half of every chapter, she's talking about, either going to a sacred site or getting attunements or getting trainings or interacting with the others. And the second half of each chapter is me answering questions that they typically ask me. That isn't just about what we've been talking about, but it's also like, okay, so here I am with all this freed up consciousness, and I see all these other choices I want to make. And we've talked about it by this point. One of the ways they stop themselves, and people typically do, is what are others going to think of me?
Oh, yeah.
Or what do I have to give up, or what am I going to lose if I actually make this choice to go bigger, to live out more of my potential? So there's very how do I stop caring about what other people think of me? So there's really applicable questions in that latest book, The Dragon Master Creatrix.
That is awesome. So you have 3 books out. That is
4.
amazing. 4 books out. Oh, wonderful. I write my first book.
My first one's What If There's Nothing Wrong? No, you don't have. It's just you be you.
Exactly. I need to sit down and do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, like it's all good. We're
Yeah.
each here for our own.
Oh, it's been so wonderful having you here, and we are up on time. I could keep you here for hours because I just love the energy and what you're providing, all this wonderful information. So I have put it in the comments. You can connect with Dr. Alison J Kay at support@vibrationalupgrade.com, or check her out on Facebook at Vibrational Upgrade. So thank you so much for being here. And if if any of you need to connect with me, you can do so at anandaforlife.com. I thank you for being here at Wellness with Deepal, and please share any comments that you would like below, and we will get them answered as soon as we can. Thank you so much, and lots of love and light. Until next time, thank you.
Namaste. Oh my